Hey everybody, this is Mr. Maupin coming at you again. Today we're doing an AP US government politics video focusing in on topic 2.7, presidential communication. Now, previously we've talked a lot about the various formal and informal powers that a president may have. But note, doesn't matter how experienced you are as a politician, doesn't matter how good your ideas are. If you are not effective at communication, you will not be a successful president. So to be an effective president, you also have to take on the mantle of being the communicator in chief. So what does this mean? Well, it means the ability to effectively publicize, promote your policies, your goals, what you are trying to get done in your agenda. Modern presidents must be able to do this effectively. Otherwise, you are going to be running a very serious risk of your political opponents having a better narrative, a better communication network that would undo your agenda and therefore pushing, legislators and the voting public against what you want to be doing. So in many respects, you cannot win the legislative fight unless you win the communication fight, which then means that you must focus in on your relationship with the media, and in many respects, the traditional press. So when we do talk about working with the traditional press, we generally are talking about, newspapers. Today we're talking about maybe television networks perhaps. But, the early examples of the presidents trying to promote their policies to the media will be through the newspapers. And, there have been, examples here and there of doing some of that throughout the 19th century, but we really don't see it being done in earnest in a regular kind of calculated way until the rise of Theodore Roosevelt at the beginning of the 20th century. Theodore Roosevelt, or TR as he was commonly known, had tremendous energy and certainly a gift for gab. If you ever ran into Roosevelt, it felt like you were, kind of in the midst of a talking tornado in terms of, the speed at which he delivered messages, the content at which he delivered, his ability to think quickly. Pretty amazing stuff. And so TR is going to use that talent in a way to communicate to not just the public, at maybe a train stop somewhere, but also with the media, with newspapers. Roosevelt would call this his bully pulpit. And as you can kind of see here, Roosevelt is using the platform of the presidency. Bully pulpit back then meant, the good stage, if you will. And so Roosevelt's going to be using this good stage, this platform as President of the United States to directly communicate to the people and to the media, with the assumption that the media will, accurately report what the president is saying. This is a way to communicate directly to the people, or at least indirectly to the people. And Roosevelt's success at communication is going to lead to success in his square deal policy initiatives. It's not going to be a surprise that Roosevelt will be able to get things like the Pure Food and Drug Act passed, being able to limit trusts, to be able to, stretch America's influence globally, and will be a very popular president for doing so. And by setting this tone, by setting this precedent, it's going to encourage future presidents to try to mimic that to some degree. But the next president that will, have real impact in terms of communicating via the media will be, lo and behold, his cousin Franklin. Franklin Roosevelt here, as you can see in this photograph from the 1930s, is going to be using the new technology of the time, radio, to directly promote his New Deal policies to the American public in the midst of the Depression. Using the radio to some degree bypasses the newspapers. It bypasses reporters. It's able to get your message directly to the people whose support you are depending on. And it was wildly effective. When you look at the New Deal programs, they were, fairly revolutionary in terms of the size and scope of the growth of power of the federal government. And, some might look at that in a very fearful way and think, oh my gosh, this might be, federal tyranny or something like that. But Roosevelt is going to use his calming presence, his effective speaking skills, to be able to make the American people feel more at ease, to feel confident, and most importantly during the Depression, provide them with hope. So understand that the Roosevelt presidencies are both going to be very significant in trying to define how the president is going to be using the media. But right around the same time as the rise of the Roosevelts, we're also going to be seeing a change in what is a constitutionally mandated requirement for the president, and that is the annual State of the Union address. Once again, that is mandated. If you look in Article 2, the president must, basically, notify Congress of the State of the Union. Now, starting with Washington, that address was done as a letter. It was written out as a letter and then formally delivered from the White House to Congress, where it was read to members of Congress. But starting with Woodrow Wilson a little over 100 years ago, Wilson decided to make this address an actual formal speech directly from him, the president, live to members of Congress. And once we start getting into the 1920s and 30s, what was a live speech by the president to Congress then starts to be broadcast nationally, to the point where today it is a major event that is broadcast on traditional television. It's done on cable television, on the radio. It's live streamed through the internet. It is a major event that is done every year by the President of the United States. So what is involved in this State of the Union address that is important with regards to presidential communication? Well, this is the singular best time every year for the president to have all attention on them, to give them a platform to, in essence, lay out their agenda, to basically kind of lay out, for lack of a better phrase, their Christmas wish list in terms of what they want to get done in the upcoming year. And that's going to be regarding domestic policy, foreign policy, economic issues, you name it. Also keep in mind that, as the name implies, State of the Union, presidents also will use this as an opportunity to basically pat themselves on the back, politically speaking, in terms of any kind of accomplishments that they have achieved. And note, even though some might look at a previous year of a president's time in office and might not find a whole ton of accomplishments objectively, believe me, presidents are going to be able to take any kind of data and try to make it sound or look good for the American public. So, it really is a dual thing. It's kind of a recapping of what the president considers to be accomplishments of the White House for the last year, and also kind of a wish list of what the president wants to achieve. And once again, as I mentioned, this is a forum that really has no parallel. When the president does give a State of the Union address, this is to a live crowd of literally millions of people watching this around the country. And yes, there are folks around the globe that are watching this. So there is no other stage like this for the president. It's the president's best opportunity to promote their policy goals. So with that in mind, what I wanted to do here real quick is I wanted to show you a couple of minutes from the final State of the Union address by former President Barack Obama here in 2016. What it is kind of a highlight, and I'm going to kind of interject as we are watching this to kind of give you some sense of some of the things that commonly happen in a State of the Union address. Now, starting off, as you can see here, the president is at the rostrum and is addressing a joint session of Congress. So you have House members and Senate members in attendance. There are also in attendance most of the cabinet and most of the U.S. Supreme Court and most of the chiefs of staff of the military. So it's pretty much a who's who of Washington federal power that is in this singular chamber at one time. Behind the president, traditionally, are the two constitutional heads of the two chambers of Congress. Behind the president's right shoulder is the president of the Senate. Back then, that was Vice President Joe Biden. And behind the president's left shoulder is the Speaker of the House. Back then, it was Republican Paul Ryan. So just kind of keep that in mind. When the president is announced and walks down to the rostrum, the president will always have 2 formal copies of the speech that he hands to both the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate, aka the Vice President of the United States. And after a series of standing ovations and applause and whatnot, the president will eventually deliver their speech. So let me kind of start this here, and I'll kind of interject as we're watching this.
The high privilege and the distinct honor of presenting to you the President of the United States.
I'm going to try to make it a little shorter. I know some of you answer to get back to Iowa. So tonight I'm announcing a new national effort to get it done. And because he's gone to the mat for all of us on so many issues over the past 40 years, I'm putting Joe in charge of mission control.
This is regarding policy dealing with research on cancer.
For the families that we can still save, let's make America the country that cures cancer once and for all. What do you say, John? Let me tell you something. The United States of America is the most powerful nation on earth. Period.
Note that clapping and applause is a regular fixture of every speech.
That's why we need to reject any politics. Any politics that targets people because of race or religion.
Now, be aware, a lot of the applause and ovations are highly partisan. You will see in many parts of a president's State of the Union speech that the president's party will applaud way more regularly, will do standing ovations way more regularly than the opposition party, which will generally kind of sit on their hands unless there's something of, unifying, of a unifying nature that brings the parties together. Usually focusing in on the military, things like that, education, stuff like that. The president will also have guests in the gallery invited that are, usually kind of mentioned during the speech for some reason or another.
It makes it harder to achieve our goals. It betrays who we are as a country. It's one of the few regrets of my presidency that the rancor and suspicion between the parties has gotten worse instead of better. I believe in change because I believe in you, the American people. And that's why I stand here as confident as I have ever been that the state of our union is strong.
The phrase "the state of our union is strong" is a very common phrase that presidents use, during these speeches. So let me get out of that real quick. But anyhow, so those are some highlights from kind of a typical State of the Union address. Rarely will you see anything that would be truly disruptive, though that has happened on occasion. A boo or a comment that's yelled out or something like that. We have seen in recent years attempts to try to bridge the gap in terms of partisanship. Sometimes you'll see Democrats and Republicans kind of couple up as a sign of putting the nation first. But yeah, the State of the Union address is a singular event that really does not have an equal on an annual basis. So right there, I'm going to leave it for now. When we come back, we'll take a look at some other aspects of presidents trying to use the media to promote their policy goals. So until next time, we'll see you. Bye-bye.